Well, we want to welcome everybody to Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. We are talking about a pretty, I don't know. I mean, this is a pretty special moment, Gary, when you can blow out an in-state rival 1 year removed from a blowout of your own team, on the road in Ames. And this is a good Iowa State team. There's no doubting that. They're a top 25 team. Had some really nice wins, including then number 1 North Carolina. Just your initial thoughts, Gary, on Iowa's 75-56 beatdown over the Cyclones.
Yeah, we talked about it after the Duke game. It'd be interesting to see how they would, react to a tough loss, and then the travel and the late night, and then you throw in you lose your best player, and so to play as well as they played in an in-state rivalry game like that is you really got to hand it to them. It was a terrific effort, and I think everybody was just on cue, ready to roll right from the opening tip, and they just put them on the ropes and smacked them around and didn't let them catch a breath, and really basically coasted to the win. So very, very impressive win.
You have initially heard that, and I texted you yesterday, but when you initially heard that Chris Murray was definitely not a go for today, obviously hindsight's 2020, but give me your thoughts in that moment. Were you positive that Iowa could hang in there? Because I didn't know, I didn't think they had much margin for error without Chris's ability to score.
Yeah, no, I think you obviously feel sorry for the kid because he wants to play in a rivalry game like this. It's not a game you want to miss. And as you think about it and watching him play against Duke, it looked like, we didn't know it, but he definitely didn't move like he normally does. So that, when I heard that and saw it, then I kind of put 2 and 2 together. So, they had a chance to play him at home, and anytime you get yourself beat, you're ready to go. But to lose a player of that caliber, and to play as well as they did, that's just a real testament to the character of the team.
And we're going to get to phone calls, and we've got James already waiting. Again, our line is open. If you want to give us a call via telephone, 515-635-1601. And when that line closes down or when it's busy, you'll see the little message along the bottom of the screen. You can also join by means of StreamYard for free. The link for that is in the description below. Let me run through some stats here, Gary. Filip Rebraca, first of all, what a night for him. 22 points, 11 boards. He added on 4 assists. He was just tremendous. And I've used the word indispensable to describe what he is to this team. And I would reiterate that this evening. If they don't have Filip Rebraca this evening, a lot of the points that we saw in this game don't happen. I mean, he gives you more than just the 22, 11, and 4. Talk about what he means to this team right now, especially inside without depth.
Well, he's playing with great confidence. He's playing with a lot of energy, and that's infectious. He's gaining confidence. You can tell he's much more under control and confident on the court, and because of their lack of depth, there's a lot of pressure on him to deliver, and he's done that. So it's makes you feel good for him, and to see him develop and play like he's playing, and just hope that he can continue to do that. But I think they mentioned that he's their most improved player, and I'd probably have to agree with the announcers. If he's not, he's right there. He's really been impressive, and he just keeps getting better and better.
Again, 22, 11, and 4 with just 2 turnovers. Patrick McCaffrey, nice second half for PMAC. 13 points on the night for Patrick. Aaron Eulis, kid got a lot of minutes. Gotta rein in maybe his decision making a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Control at times, but But boy, they needed his minutes as well. And then Tony Perkins was, I thought, really good. This team brought it on the defensive end from the get-go and seemed to really establish the tempo early. And that physicality that Iowa lacked a year ago, they seemed to dictate officiating, if that makes sense. Talk a little bit about how Iowa came out to start things defensively.
Well, they did. They did a terrific job of limiting them to one shot. They had gotten beaten pretty bad on the boards last year, and Iowa State got some offensive rebounds as the game went on. But in the initial blast where they jumped out to that big lead and really, for the most part, won the game right there, they couldn't score. They either turn the ball over, making them take tough shots and not giving them second shots and not fouling. The case of both teams, one team fouled and the other team didn't. And, it's good to be aggressive, but you got to learn to be aggressive without fouling. And it got Iowa to the free throw line. I don't know the exact stats, but I bet they outscored them by at least 10, maybe more at the free throw line. Got into the penalty early in both halves. And so that's a recipe for a runaway win. And that's exactly what they got.
Well, you're a prophet, Gary. They outscored them by 10 at the free throw line. 15-5. All right. So, no, you're absolutely right. And, performances like this, and I'll be honest, I thought that second half, you knew Iowa State was going to make a push, but it just never really felt in doubt. Even when they came out, you could tell that there was a bit of a pep in their step to start that second half, but Iowa didn't let down their guard. What's from a coaching's perspective, because you've been in these situations where your team holds a big lead at halftime. One quote that I recall from football, Don Patterson has said this before: when you're down by a lot, you don't eat an elephant in one big gulp, right? You take one bite at a time, and same with basketball, I'm sure. But from a leader's standpoint, when you're up by 20 to 25 points at halftime, how do you keep your team in check, ready for that second half?
Well, you want to have respect for the game. You want to play the game the way it's supposed to be played in terms of playing hard and playing unselfish and taking care of the ball. And one of the things you worry as a coach when you get a big lead is you lose concentration, you get sloppy, and that's how you allow teams to get back in the game. And, I thought Iowa State showed a little bit of life in the beginning of the half, and then Iowa kind of regrouped and went from 20 to nearly 30, and the game was over. So, and that's to their credit. It's hard to maintain that in a game that gets out of hand like that. But for the most part, they did a good job of that.
All right, let's get to James, who's on hold. James, welcome to the show.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. One thing I got one question I got. So I know we're up by a lot. It doesn't matter to me, but I was confused. When we threw the lob to Abracha with like 2:09 left, why did you shoot a 1-on-1? Isn't a dunk a shot?
I missed that. Was that?
It was at the end of the game. We tried to throw the lob to Abracha on the inbounds play, and then he got fouled. But they made him shoot a 1-on-1, and I was so confused. I was like, isn't a dunk a shot?
Oh, I see. I guess I missed that as well. I should be. That's a shooting foul, right, Gary? If it
was a flat out lob, maybe they got him fouling him before he left the floor. I don't know. I don't remember that.
The ball, if the ball's not in your possession, but the ball's coming up to you and you're going for an alley-oop, that's still considered a shooting foul, correct?
You got to have the ball in your hands.
Oh, okay. Then no, it wasn't then. Okay, then I was confused at first.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Yep. But no, I feel like they played better. And I'm not one to say obviously Keegan makes an impact, or Chris makes an impact. My bad. Chris makes an impact, but like sometimes I feel like maybe it's better if you don't play with your star one game, just so you can kind of get the things flowing. Because you don't have somebody you have to go to. I feel like sometimes they're like not feel pressure to give it to Keegan, but Keegan needs his buckets too. Everybody's just like they can spread it out amongst themselves, and get their buckets without having to worry as much. If that makes sense. Sometimes I feel like it's good to have your star out sometimes, because one thing I noticed about Iowa too, and I know I might be the person that says this, but they feed Luka a lot. Like when Luka was here, they fed him a lot. In some situations, you'd be triple team. So like sometimes it might spread it out if you don't have your star there, because he'll get double teamed. I know you can still open shots, but you can get more open looks because the defense is not as close, if that makes sense. Focus on one guy.
I'll say this, James and Gary. The game that came. Is there one game that came to mind as you were watching this evening's game? One game from last year that came to your mind, Gary?
No, Not right off the top of my head, no.
Iowa at Purdue last year. Remember, Keegan was out for that game
Yeah,
at
right.
Purdue,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Iowa just,
Almost.
they
Mhm.
played their tails off, almost found a way to win.
Yeah,
A really good Purdue team. That kind of reminded me of this game, James, just because
yeah,
of how
that's a good
Iowa
point.
came out, and certainly Tony Perkins. Remember how good he was in West Lafayette,
Yep.
and it just seems like when either Keegan or Chris have been down in these situations against high major teams, Tony kind of finds that extra spark, if you will. So I'm
Well, I think Tony was disappointed in his play against Duke. It was not one of his better games, and that's a sign of a good player. Hey, you learn through trial and tribulation, and then you don't feel sorry for yourself and get out there and improve. And he had some big buckets early, had a lot of energy. He led them. I thought he did a great job at the start, and they got a nice big lead. And Iowa State is not a team that is going to score a lot of points, so it makes it even more difficult for them to come back when they're that far down. So that quick start was really important.
I think it's good to see the way they shot the ball coming off of like a game as bad as they did against the Duke. What they hit 12 threes, 12 or 13. I think it was 12.
12 of 23.
Yeah.
Yep.
So like that's something that's always a good thing. And then they're playing at home makes a difference, but it's just good to see you kind of fight back, especially since I think they said they got there at 5 a.m. on Wednesday back home, back to Iowa City. So they didn't have much. What?
Late night. Yeah, I think you said 5 in the morning.
Yeah, they said 5 a.m. on the FS1. They didn't get back to 5 a.m.
Again, Gary's a prophet. He said that last week. He said if that game before them goes to overtime, you're probably going to get back like 4 or 5 a.m. And Gary was right again. Right again, Gary.
But yeah,
I just better go home now. I'm on a roll.
Stop while you're in.
It was a lot better game than I thought it was going to be. I thought, we're going to get blown out, but I don't think a lot of people expected this, especially with how tough Iowa State's played.
One thing that did surprise me, Gary, and I'm just I'll just say this because we had this conversation after Duke. Were you surprised that Desante Bowen gets 2 minutes and 55 seconds in this game?
Well, a little bit, but his 2 minutes and 55 seconds were awfully shaky. And then that's when you're a freshman, we talked about it. You got to give the coach confidence. And he was really loose with the ball in those 2 or 3 minutes. And it was relatively early in the game. And I think I told my wife, I said, I'm not sure he's getting back in because of you gotta give the coach confidence, and I didn't think he did, but he's a freshman. That's going to happen, and he'll throw him out there again, and hopefully he'll play better. But I think it is. We talked about it when you're in a game where the game's kind of decided. It's a little easier to play than when you're thrown out there 5-6 minutes into the game, and it's still a game. So, but good learning experience for him. But I wasn't surprised.
Devil's advocate, though, on that, Gary. Eulis turned the ball over 6 times and was loose with the ball all night.
There's no doubt. That's one of the areas that was definitely concerning because that's a lot of turnovers. Iowa State forces a lot of turnovers, but a lot of them were dumb turnovers, just dribbling into areas where they shouldn't, picking their dribble up, throwing passes that no look passes. They were, you got to hope they're going to get completed, and tonight, fortunately, it didn't hurt them. Iowa State also had some ugly turnovers, so it probably negated their turnovers, but that's not a recipe for winning against real good teams.
And we actually saw Josh Dix log over 10 minutes in this game. Just took the one shot on the putback, but
nice putback.
He seems to be holding his own defensively right now and knows where to be. I mean, again, from my vantage point, maybe you as a coach can tell me differently, but he looks like he's a guy who can be called upon when needed.
Yeah, and there's an example of a guy that was and played well, and so the coach has got a little more confidence to give you another shot. So, I agree.
Anything else, James?
And so Rebraca hitting threes is always a plus. I mean, he's hit one in his career before tonight, so him hitting 2 is always a plus, even though you're up by a lot. If you can get him going a little bit, it's great. You need somebody to step up, and I think most people thought it'd be Tony or Pat, that stepped up big time, but Rebraca was the one, which is always a good thing to see, especially with all the bigs they threw at him. And what's his name? Osuni, however you say his name, Robert Jones. They threw a lot of people at him, and he still was just not afraid.
And I'll say this too: if Ulis is making threes, he was 2 of 2 tonight. If he's making threes, changes the game. I mean, you saw Tony come out, make 2 threes, and then when they kind of played off Ulis, similar to how teams played Joe Toussaint over the past 3 years. And today, Aaron Ulis went up there and made both.
Pay for it. Yep. No doubt.
For sure. What's your thoughts on Wisconsin? I mean, I know they're a good team, but if we don't have Chris, do you think it's still more of the same, or it's just?
Well, I think it's a tough game even with Chris.
I mean, it is, but this was also a tough game. I feel like too, and it's at home, right? Wisconsin.
It is at home.
Correct.
Yep.
That's always supposed to, and it's on the weekend, so hopefully we can get more crowd there because crowd has always been an issue. Except tonight, it seemed like there's a lot of people there.
Crowd was terrific tonight.
Which is also good because Cade was there. So at least for Corey, it's also good because Cade was there, and I hope he was having a good time with it. Being in Iowa City at least.
Yeah, McNamara. Yep, it's good.
We'll see what happens, and it was a good win. At least I can brag a little bit now because obviously football they got a little bit of bragging rights. Well, they had a little bit of bragging rights to football, so you kind of had to be quiet. But now we had them wrestling girls basketball and boys basketball, so now they can't really say much.
Quite a game last night as well. I appreciate the call, James.
Thanks, James.
Yeah, so just for everybody, if you're new to the show, again, you can call in right now. We got the phone line tied up, but I'm going to put the StreamYard link. So if you want to join the show by internet, click on the link that I just threw up in the live chat. No guarantees when we go to the phone lines who we're going to get, what we're going to get, Gary.
Oh, you never know. Let's
see what we got here.
That's the beauty of live television.
There you go. Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. Who's on the line?
Gentlemen, how you doing? This is Derek from Burlington.
How you doing?
Derek? Derek, do you know Dick Benny?
I do not.
Oh, he's a big Burlington guy.
Wow, what a game. What a game. That really made up for the Cyhawk football game. I'll say that for sure.
Amen.
But I just had a quick question. Love both the McCaffrey guys, Connor and Patrick, but out of the two players, who's more productive, do you think? Who do you think is the better player?
I think they're totally different players. It's hard to compare them. We had talked in the last game that we thought Connor deserved more minutes. Now he got more minutes, not the way we wanted to with Murray getting hurt, but they both have different roles. Connor's more of a glue guy, defender, passer, tough. Whereas they're looking for more scoring from Patrick. Both of them are very, very important. But to compare them, it's probably not fair because their roles are just completely different.
All right, let's get to Doug. Doug, our man, Doug.
That's a hard one to follow, Doug.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Yeah, good. He's gonna go take the time and energy to start a new phone number so he can call us back. So you got a few minutes when he does that, Doug.
Well, he'll probably start 670 or something like that, but that's okay. I'll put my face on camera, so I can't get away with that type of stuff. It's great to have that victory. I want to give a story at the end that Coach might like, but I was concerned we had 18 turnovers. But I remember a game in Kansas where we had 31-1. I don't know if Coach remembers that game.
Yes, I do remember that one.
Yeah, because they made a big deal about that one. Yeah. But it was great to see. I told you they shoot better at home. You kind of rolled your eyes at me, Corey. I mean, I know that's duh, but
Well,
he's an eye roller.
Yeah, they got 12 threes tonight. That's what we needed. Needed 12 threes.
Let's make sure we get 12 on Sunday.
Yep. Well, if they get 10 threes, I'm pretty comfortable they usually win. 10 threes and hold the team under 70, they usually win. But again, I was very concerned with Ulis having 6 turnovers. I thought Bowen would get more minutes. He didn't. You said his 3 minutes weren't very good. Well, we need him, but especially if we're down to only 9 real players.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Josh gave us like 3 or 4 minutes. Josh Dix, like you said, it's good to see him get 10 minutes and play well. And it's good to see Peyton get a 3 in there and Ulis get those threes. I mean, like I said, 10 threes, we usually win. So, but yeah, I'm really happy. Like I told you guys, I grew up in Ames. I wanted to share a story to Coach Close.
Sure.
when I was in 7th grade, it was about April 1997. So you had been assistant coach at Iowa. I was kind of a troubled youth, and so they paid for me to go to basketball camp. Well, they paid for me to go to Iowa State basketball camp, and I'm a resident of Iowa. And I told them I ain't going to Iowa State, and they're like, "Well, you get to go to Hilton and all these places." And I'm like, "I want to see Ryan Bowen and those guys." And yeah, they were all like, "You're ungrateful," but I was like, "Hey, I'd rather travel 2 hours to go see Gary." And yeah, you're awesome.
Sure it was me.
Yeah, well, my mom still talks about Coach Davis waved at her at basketball camp as they were dropping me off. So,
right?
Yeah, you, Coach Walker, all you guys were awesome. And but yeah, they tried to get me to go to Iowa State basketball camp, and I was like, no, they even paid for it. So we paid out of our pocket to send me to Iowa City. So that should tell you something, Coach. We paid for me to see you.
Camp was fun. I had a great time at camp. It was we had a lot of kids that come and had our guys involved, and it was a good time.
Yeah, I went for 3 years, two with your staff, then one with Alfred's staff, and it was really different when they switched staffs. I'll just put it that way. Steve was a different type of coach than Coach Davis was from a personality standpoint. But yeah, I just like I said, this makes it easier being a Hawkeye in Ames. Like I said, I've respected you since '97, Coach, and you're like Corey thinks you predict these things. Well, you just know these things. You know, you've been around basketball so long.
I'm a good guesser.
Yeah. So yeah, just like I said, we paid for me to go basketball camp at your place, and we turned down a free offer from Iowa State.
There you go.
But
it kind of reminds me of Jim Zabel's line at the iClubs, where the guy wins a raffle and wins 2 tickets to an Iowa State game, and the guy that comes in second place wins 4 tickets, something like that. So,
well, I would have season tickets if I wasn't 2 hours away. You know, it's always been that way, especially games like this that get over so late. I know Sunday's game's 5:30, but you know, this like I said, the university's done a lot of good things for my family, and your basketball. Whenever I run into any of your former players, those guys were my heroes. They probably, you know, were just ordinary young men, but they always took the time when I was at the hospital or when my grandparents were at the hospital to say nice things. And I'll be back hopefully on Sunday. I guess I have some anxieties about getting on here, but I'll show my face and not say weird stuff.
You're ready to roll.
Yeah. Let's get the Badgers. I know you were there for 10 years, but let's get the Badgers. All right. Nice. Thank you, Coach. Yeah.
Thanks for the call. You bet. Thank you. That was nice of my cousin to call.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so here's the deal, Gary. First of all, before we get to more breakdown of this win, Scott wants to know about Chris Murray, how long he's expected to be out. I did see Tom Kakert tweeted something out before the game, and I know the university did not specify how long they expected him to be out. Excuse me, but according to Tom Kakert, let's see if I can find, unless he deleted the tweet. I doubt he deleted the tweet here. I want to say he said a couple of weeks, actually, Gary, which is
did he really?
Not a good thing. But I don't quote me on this. Okay, so yes, according to Rivals, Tom Kakert and Rivals, let's see, the Iowa program received tough news on Thursday and announced that Chris Murray would miss some time. A source confirmed that Murray would be out for potentially a couple of weeks due to a plantar fascia issue.
Okay, yeah, that doesn't usually heal real quick.
The good news is, though, if you look at the schedule, and you know this, Gary, they've got some time. If you can get, survive Wisconsin, there's no way he's playing against Wisconsin. There's just no way he's playing against Wisconsin because
I don't think so.
You can get past Wisconsin, then you play Eastern Illinois, which, by the way, last year they're one of the worst teams on paper that's ever played college basketball. Gary, they average like 49 points, 50 points a game or something ridiculous. So that should be, I mean, we're talking a couple of easy wins. The other game, I don't even remember who the other game is against. But, and you have kind of a 5-day, I think after Wisconsin, you have a 5-day window.
Early finals and yeah.
Yeah. It gives him some time to maybe get that foot healed before you get back into Big Ten play. Matt wants to know about what football portal recruits were at the game. Well, Cade McNamara was there. Eric All, the Michigan tight end, was there. And then Ernest Hausman, Nebraska linebacker, was also there, according to a number of sources who were at the game. So, yeah, these big games, both football and basketball.
How does that work? Is that are they on an official visit, or are they just visiting unofficial visit, or how does that work?
I have no idea. Once you're in the portal, how visits and unofficial visits versus official visits work. I have no clue.
Yeah.
It's a great question. I just don't have the answer for you. You should know this, Gary. You have the answer.
No, we didn't have the portal when I was around, so I would assume it's an unofficial visit, but I don't know.
We're going to get back to the Iowa State win tonight, but tell me your best. Who's the best transfer that you guys ever had?
Well, Andre Woolridge was a transfer to Iowa.
Where was he at before?
He was at where was he? Was he at Nebraska? No, I couldn't have been. Where was he?
I guess I had totally forgotten that he was.
Maybe it wasn't. Maybe Andre wasn't a transfer. Now that I think about it, Val Barnes was definitely a transfer, and I think he was at community college in Kansas.
No, you're right. You're right again.
Was Andre a transfer?
Andre Woolridge was a transfer from Nebraska.
Nebraska, yeah. I wasn't sure about that. Yeah, that was a pretty good get.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Should have been the Big Ten Player of the Year his last year. He got robbed.
And who won that year?
I think Bobby Jackson from Minnesota, because they finished first, we finished second. Although they lost they had to relinquish their title because of academic improprieties, I think. But Andre led the league in scoring and assists and didn't get the MVP.
That's a great answer, though. I had somebody on this earlier in the week claim that Fran McCaffrey doesn't understand how to use the portal. Let's not forget that Philip Bracha is a portal kid. He was a good ad in North Dakota.
Yeah. Well, and it's everybody's going after it. So it's
right.
You're up against everybody trying to win. So it's not easy.
And so I give TJ Otzelberger a lot of credit. He's managed to use the transfer portal in less than 2 years, a little over a year, and build a team that's been consistently for the last year and a half, consistently in the top 25. That's not. Yeah,
no, that's not easy. It'll be curious to see if he can keep it up, because that's not. That's a tough route to follow, but maybe that's one you have to when you're at Iowa State.
Yeah, this isn't the era of Fred Hoiberg anymore.
Right.
When Fred Hoiberg was tapping into that transfer portal, it wasn't the transfer portal when he started tapping into it, and he was getting guys that didn't have many options. And
right.
To his credit, that he was selective and got guys that fit his program, and they play totally. It's amazing. Otzelberger coached with Hoiberg, but they play a totally different style of basketball.
Yeah, they sure do. Yeah, they sure do.
So let's get Tony added to the mix here. Before we do that, actually, before we get to Tony, I want to thank Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm in Des Moines. Mention him and his team each and every post-game show, getting you great rates on insurance coverage in Des Moines. Again, visit them online, bradvanmeter.com. You can also call their team at 515-256-6480. Thank you to Brad Van Meter and his team down there at State Farm. All right, let's get Tony out of the mix here. Tony.
I do want to appreciate your memory of saying, hey, before you get me on, pay those bills. Yeah, get those advertisements in.
As soon as I see you with the From the Hawkeye to the Storm hat, I realize money. No,
we got to pay Coach Close's salary somehow, right, Coach?
Oh, it's well into the six figures.
I keep writing him IOUs. He keeps accepting them, Tony. So what are you supposed to do?
I'm not a fool.
Man, what a fun game.
I'm on a fixed income, so whatever I can get, I take.
What a fun game. And I know you probably don't know my Twitter handle. I still respond to you on Twitter, Corey, but I told you relax before the game. Just relax.
I did see your
It'll be all right. Just relax.
Today was a weird day for me on Twitter. I was getting ripped left and right. So,
Really?
How come?
oh yes, totally unbasketball related. We won't get into it. Totally not basketball related.
I got you.
Today was a weird day, Tony. Collectively, weird day. I won't get into why, but lots of weird stuff going on. But anyways, this is a nice thing to talk about.
I always switch tabs back and forth because I have a notes tab like on my Google Docs. So I will take this time to say, Corey, you were right. Rabracha is the most indispensable player on this team. I don't know why we ever doubt you when you say things like that.
Thank you.
Well,
I appreciate
Corey's
that.
very rarely wrong.
Yeah. I'll say this, Gary. The foul that was called on Rabracha in the first half where they're fighting for the ball, I didn't like that foul. And that foul kind of worried me too, because I'm thinking, that's a cheap one. And he's the last guy you need in foul trouble right now. And his credit, as you said earlier, he played without fouling. And with as physical as he plays, as hard as he crashes the glass, that's a tough thing to do. He's got a knack for that. It's not often he gets in foul trouble.
Yeah, and he's going to have to be that way because he's got to be on the floor. So if he's sitting on the bench with fouls, that's I can guarantee that's what Wisconsin's going to do. They're going to go right at him and see if they can get him in foul trouble because they know behind him is not a whole lot. So he's got to play smart. And so far, he's done just that, which is good to see.
And this is how smart Corey is. My next note was to say, Phillip committed 2 fouls and drew 5 fouls.
There you go.
And he played in 37:03.
Yeah, that's heavy minutes, Gary, in a blowout. I mean, those are heavy minutes.
Yeah, and then there's no doubt, and it was pretty much a blowout from start to finish. Yeah, well, he was a big reason it was a blowout.
And he does things like when you see like a wide open lane and he's the only player in the lane, he sets up for a charge. Oh, Corey lost us, but I guess it's just me and you, Coach. He sets up for a charge and he doesn't put his hands up so he could draw a foul if the guard or whoever's slashing through the lane, goes into him and, could draw a foul with his hands up, or he just puts his hands down and it just stationary in the lane and waits for the charge instead of trying to maybe make a foul happen, I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
Sure. 4 of our 5 starters were in double digits and Ulyss had 8.
Well, we talked about it in the last game. I think for them to be successful, they're going to have to get contributions from a lot of people, especially now with Chris out. But even with them in there, they need some depth in terms of scoring, and they did get that tonight. Shot it better, obviously, and it was a big recipe for jumping out to that big lead, which basically won the game.
What do you attribute the higher turnover count to? Mainly, Gary, is that just the way Iowa State plays? Because, like you said,
I think it's part of the way Iowa State plays. They're active and they got pretty good athleticism, and I think a little over dribbling into areas where you're going to get in trouble. Obviously, they force you to go baseline and then they just trap you down there, and that's a dangerous area to pick a dribble up because there's no passing angles to get out of it. So. I would guess that some of those will be on the tape. They'll watch it and say, here's some things we got to do to prevent that because they don't want to turn the ball over on Sunday because Wisconsin's not going to turn the ball over. So that'll be an important stat that if they have 18 turnovers on Sunday, they're not going to win.
That was one of my next things I was going to say. I have 3 negatives for tonight. Number 1, Iowa State scored more than Cal did last night. So that's just disappointing. Can't let Iowa State score. That's just disappointing.
That's true.
Number 2, we did have more turnovers than assists. Like you said, I think it was 18-16 was the final tally. 18 turnovers and 16 assists.
That's been a long time since that's happened.
Yeah.
And 18. That's why I wanted to ask you, Gary, because you said earlier that a lot of these turnovers were unforced. I think you're right. And yes, Iowa State plays a different brand, but Iowa hit basic. I mean, we think back to last year. And even the first month of this season, they just don't turn the ball over. I mean, it's not like they don't even flirt with the double figures very often. So them to get 18 today just seems odd.
Yeah, hopefully it's just an aberration because they definitely have not played like that before. But it's also an example. It's kind of like missing free throws. You start getting a few, and all of a sudden it kind of gets contagious, and you try to force things and over dribble, and one turnover leads to another, and all of a sudden you got 18. So, but I think some of it's got to go the way Iowa State plays. They've always created a lot of turnovers, and that's why in some cases, why they foul is they're reaching and they're aggressive. And so if you're strong with the ball, you can draw some fouls. If you're weak and make dumb decisions, you'll turn it over. And we did a little bit of both.
And I think also like we compare Iowa State with TCU and Duke with like great defensive pressure on the ball and stuff, but TCU and Duke don't go for that trap in the corner. So it's a different style of pressure maybe that Iowa wasn't exposed to, and then they were exposed to.
And they don't
tonight.
foul. Iowa State has a tendency to foul overly aggressive, and Duke didn't foul much, neither did TCU.
My last negative before I get into a question for Coach Close was we only held the lead for 38 minutes and 49 seconds. I wish it could have been 40. I wish they could have found a way to hold the lead for all 40 minutes.
That's how long it took us to get one bucket?
Yeah, that would be minute 11. Yeah. So that's we need to get a faster start. That's just unacceptable.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed we let them score at all, Tony.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
It looked like they might not. In fact, their first bucket was on an offensive rebound.
Now, I will say this. Let's call a spade a spade. Iowa State's not a very good offensive team, Gary.
No, especially when they fall behind like that and got to play faster than they want to play. And when their guards are, I've never seen so many ugly air balls. When their guards aren't shooting well, they're kind of streaky. And when they're on, Wisconsin found out about that last year in the NCAA tournament, knocked them out. But when they're not, then they really have a hard time scoring. And then you compound the fact that you're down 20, and now you're taking shots you probably normally don't take and playing faster than you want to, and it just kind of snowballs.
It was there's one shot in the first half that an Iowa State player had the ball on the wing, and Connor just was standing in the paint with his hands down, almost saying like, "Shoot the ball." And they dared some of the guys to shoot that you knew couldn't shoot.
Yeah.
The question I had for you, Coach Close, was in a situation like this, what do you do for a practice schedule? You had the short turnaround today, and it was an emotional game. Do you get a light practice in on Friday and then just like a walkthrough on Saturday, or what do you guys do in something?
Well, it probably varies from coach to coach. But I would guess tomorrow will be real light. They'll probably maybe watch a little bit of tape of this past game and then put in the Iowa State scouting report. I don't even know if they'll go live tomorrow. My guess is they probably won't. They might do it on a limited basis, maybe some half-court possessions. And then Saturday, they'll probably pick it up a little bit more with working on the Iowa State scouting report, leading into Sunday's game. But I think both practices won't be very long. And I doubt there'll be a whole lot of full court running, probably more half-court situations to try to save their legs a little bit.
Also, let's rest up and get that win on Sunday, and 2-1 this week, as we all said before this week, was a very desirable goal. If we could beat Wisconsin, that could have erased a lot of the sour taste from that Duke game at MSG.
Oh, it'd be a great week. I think even before the Duke game, if you said to go 2-1 on that schedule, you'd have been thrilled. So Sunday is big.
And Gary, when was it yesterday? I think last night on a live show, I used the word listless to describe how Iowa played against Duke, and maybe that's a strong word that you don't like. But honestly, ever since the Seton Hall win, I have kind of felt like Iowa has plotted, and there just hasn't been a lot of energy in any game. Even the win against Clemson, the win against Georgia Tech, it's just kind of like, okay, they're winning. Those, Georgia Tech's not very good, and they played with fire against Clemson, found a way to win. You're happy about that, but there was just a different pep in their step from a fan's perspective, Gary. I think everybody in that arena and everybody watching on television could notice that this evening.
Yeah, well, you got your butt kicked on national TV in a big game. That, there's not a better message than that. And then you're playing your in-state rival. It'll be interesting to see if they got the same energy and compassion come Sunday, because I think they're going to need it.
Did you say compassion?
Mm-hmm. Passion.
Oh, okay. I heard. I heard.
Did I say compassion? Passion. And compassion too for their teammates.
I don't think they got any compassion for. I don't know how Greg Gard and Fran McCaffrey interact. I know that those two teams don't get along. Part of that because of a guy named Brad Davison, who's no longer with that Badger team. But I mean, these are two rivals. I consider Wisconsin to be a rival even in basketball. Tony
Davidson, Brad Davidson.
Yeah, this is what I said.
Yeah,
what did I say?
I thought you said Dave. Maybe I misheard you. I thought I heard Davis, but yeah. He's just he was one of those annoying players. He reminded me of like Brian Cardinal. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah, but Brian Cardinal, hold on a second. Brian Cardinal was a darn good NBA player.
But you love to have him. You love to have those type of guys on your team, but you hated to play against them. Is what I was going.
Gary, your thoughts on the difference between Brian Cardinal and Brad Davison? You never coached Brad Davison, so you can comment on him freely.
I did not coach Brad. I did coach Brian Cardinal.
You did?
I did.
Okay, I forgot about that.
I took the Big Ten All-Star team to Europe when all the Big Ten head coaches didn't want to do it, and he was one of our players. A great kid. His dad was the trainer at Illinois, Rod Cardinal, and so really good player. But they kind of played the same. I think as you said, if you're on your team, you like him. If they're not, you don't, and that's okay.
I probably took up too much of your time, guys, though. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate the call, sir.
See you, Tony.
Brian Cardinal, though, was he to Purdue?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he
was more of a forward, inside banger type player.
He was an NBA. He had an NBA career.
Yeah, which was surprised me. I didn't. He was a good player. I don't know if he was an NBA player, but he played in the NBA just the way he played in college, and that's how he stayed in there. He just tough and good team player and physical, and real good guy.
I'm sure nobody cares about this, but I'm a big Dallas Mavs fan. I believe he was part of that 2011 NBA. I think he's an NBA.
Right. I think you're right.
So, are you a Mavs fan, Gary?
No. Well, okay. I was a little bit when Devin Harris played there, but no, I grew up in Philly, so I'm a 76ers fan, although I don't like the way they play. They're hard to watch. Yeah,
Devin Harris is he had 2 stints there. He had 2 stints in Dallas. His first stint, I was disappointed when they let him go, and I know the NBA is a business. Boy, he was terrific as a young guy, fresh out of college. Anyway,
great college player. Great college player. Yeah, yes, he was. Really good.
All right. So we mentioned earlier Rebraca, 22 points, 11 boards, 4 assists. Tony Perkins, 10 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. He had the tomahawk dunk in the second half. He is just a guy who gives you energy. We've talked about his physicality. He's a guy who can match you physically. And when I do think a lot of Tony's problems, you may tell me I'm wrong, Gary, I think his issues over the past week or two, he had the hip injury that limited him going into, I believe it was the Clemson game.
Yep.
And, he missed 1 game prior to that. I just wonder, has that been holding him back? Because if you're talking about it, I think it was a hip. I don't think it was a thigh. I think it was a hip. Doesn't that, regardless of the exact nature of that injury, that's going to affect you as it relates to energy on the defensive end, correct?
Yeah, I would think so. And balance and I agree with you totally. And so hopefully it's a good sign. Maybe he's getting healthier, and because they need him. They need some outside threats, or the teams are just going to keep packing it in and making it even harder to drive and post up. So they got to have somebody out there that can keep him honest. And tonight he wasn't the only one, but they shot the ball with confidence, and now the driving lanes are a little bit bigger, and people aren't sagging around guys in the post, and just makes things a lot easier if you can extend the defense a little bit.
And in addition to Iowa turning the ball over, they actually lost on bench points, which is not as big of a surprise because you lost a bench guy because he had to start. And there was a
Iowa
question.
State plays more guys.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a question here from Bob. He says, do you think Connor should start in place of Aaron when Chris comes back based on this evening? That's an interesting, you say it all the time. It doesn't really matter who's starting as opposed to who's playing more minutes. Do you fiddle with that based on this one game?
Yeah, I don't know. I like to get Connor as many minutes as he can handle. I just think he's that good in terms of all the things that he does. I think a lot will depend upon how they both play, and specifically Aaron, because he's you pretty much know what you're going to get from Connor. Can Aaron give you something a little bit different? Well, that's what I think they're trying to figure out. And if that's the case, then it's nice to have somebody like Connor coming off the bench, getting some production off the bench. So, but I think that is a work in progress. But right now, I'm guessing they'll stick with what they're doing. Of course, with Chris out, then it's kind of a moot point. But when he comes back, then it'll change.
Our guy George says Rebracha is our baby Sabonis, and that's what Jason wants to know. Gary, do you have a comparison, the best comp for Rebracha during your Iowa tenure? He says James Winters.
Yeah, that's a good one. James was even more undersized than Phillip is. I think Jake's is a little bit like Phillip, kind of physical, tough. Who else would jump into my mind? I think Jake is one that jumped out of me right away. But let me think about that. I might throw another name out there before the show's over. How
did Looking Bill play?
Yeah, a little bit like Wade. Yeah, Wade probably wasn't as big as Phillip, and probably he didn't have to score like Phillip's got to score for this team. But a grinder and good rebounder and things like that. There is some similarities.
Let's get to Drill MVP, who's on hold. Drill MVP, welcome to the show.
Hey, Coach. Hi, Corey. How are you guys doing this evening?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Doing good. I wasn't able to see all the game. I saw the second half, though, and it looked like to me Iowa was just a half a step faster than usual. Did you all notice that as well? They looked faster. They looked stronger. Their shots were more open today.
Yeah, I would agree. I thought they're definitely sharper and moving with a little more urgency and getting up down the court quicker. And yeah, I think they're a very determined team tonight after how they played on Tuesday. Not that they played horribly, but I think there was significant energy tonight right from the get-go. And I think the crowd deserves some credit for that. It was a great crowd. People were ready to go and made for a great atmosphere.
Well, that's what I was going to lead to next is, do you think Iowa is one of these teams that is going to vastly overperform at home compared to what they do on the road this year?
Well, that's a good question. I guess we're going to have to wait and see.
They're 1-0 on the road.
Yeah, and the Duke game was on a neutral course against a real good team. We'll have to wait and see. I don't off the top of my head think they're not going to be good on the road, but we're going to have to. That question is going to have to be answered here down the road. No pun intended.
Yeah, thank you. Durrell MVP. They're 1-0 on the road. Good win at Seton Hall. They're 1-2 on neutral sites, but one of those two losses was against Duke. I know Tony played up the, or was it Doug that played it up? The being at home. And I understand you shoot better at home typically, but I just think it's too early. We don't have a big enough sample size of Iowa going on the road yet.
Right.
And we're not going to get that until we get into Big Ten play. So,
they're
going to be tested on the road. I have no reason to think this team can't transfer this type of a performance on the road. It's just a matter of doing it. Right, Gary?
Exactly. Yeah. And then like anything, if you do it, then you gain confidence. You can do it again. So the teams that challenge for Big Ten title get some road wins for sure. So that'll be a fun thing to watch.
Yeah, one of the things also I wanted to ask you is just about the strength of the Big Ten in general this year. The Big Ten's looking like maybe the best basketball conference this year. So usually the Big Ten is one of these leagues that normally beats up on one another, but this year I think it could be exacerbated just because of the quality of the Big Ten. I'm not sure if that's something you two have noticed as well.
Yeah, I think again the jury is still out. It's been interesting. We've had some really great wins by the Big Ten. Then we've had some kind of puzzling losses, and I think initially they weren't as highly thought of as they had been in the past. They kind of changed that a little bit with some of these wins. We got more teams in the top 25 and threatening. But the real evaluation is what you do in March. That's where your the total evaluation is, and the Big Ten is, when the tournament rolls around, it's got to play well, and we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's fair to say that the Big Ten as a whole has underperformed in March compared to what their expectations were before going into the tournament. But I was just looking at some of the wins, like Illinois beat Texas. That's a huge win. Purdue is undefeated, and they've looked really good this year. They could win the whole thing this year.
Mm-hmm.
And Michigan State 6-4. They beat Kentucky. They took Gonzaga to the wire. There's a lot of depth in this league, and Indiana lost on the road at Rutgers. I know that's an in-conference game, but that just shows the quality of each and every team.
Yeah, I was going to say that is something I wanted to bring up tonight, Gary. There have been some upsets within the conference, with Maryland losing, for instance, but there haven't been many upsets with Big Ten teams, Big Ten favorites, I should say, outside the conference.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to even think of an example of a Big Ten team that went in and lost it. Rutgers lost at Miami. That's a road game. I mean, there just have not been many examples. But
I think Wisconsin losing at home to Wake Forest was a bit of an upset. Not huge, but
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
There haven't been those big.
There have been more bigger wins than there have been questionable losses.
Nebraska at Creighton, Iowa. I know Iowa was favored in this game, but I mean, with down Chris Murray, they were not going to be. Believe me, if that line had opened back up, Chris Murray being out, Iowa would have been the pretty solid underdogs, I think, even at home. So, no, you're right, Drill MVP. The whole beating up on each other, I don't know how much substance to that there is. Gary, you coached a team in Wisconsin that was the epitome of being physical, and you took them to a couple Final Fours. So it can be done. You can play a full Big Ten season and still have success in March. How much do you buy into that theory, Gary, that the Big Ten struggles in March or because the conference beats up on itself for 2 to 3 months?
Maybe a little bit, but I don't. I think it's just an excuse. You got to deliver. You got to deliver when it counts, and I would rather look at it. Hey, when we're playing against teams like this, is just preparing us to play well in the tournament because we've had competitive games and been in competitive arenas, and I think when you go through the Big Ten tournament and play 3-4 nights, that can have an effect for sure, especially if you have a Thursday NCAA tournament game. But I think we've just got to play better when the NCAA rolls around. I think and hopefully we will, because it's been an unbelievable league, and but we've got to break through and get a national champion here soon, so we can puff out our chests even more.
Yeah, one thing I'll add is that Wisconsin was within 1 point of beating Kansas on a neutral site, and that would have been a huge win.
Should have won.
Yeah, I know.
Luke rebounds. Yep.
But a big loss, I think, for the Big Ten was Michigan losing to Arizona State. They might be two equal teams, but the margin of victory in that game, I mean, Arizona State looked like the better team from start to finish.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much of the game you saw there, but
I think the landscape right now, it's early. They're really you don't see any real dominant. I mean, look at North Carolina. They were number one. Now they're out of the poll. In like 2 weeks, they're gone.
Yep.
So I don't think there's any dominant, I don't want to play them teams. Maybe a couple exceptions, but so it's wide open, not only in the league, but nationally. I think there's a bunch of teams that can win it. Got to stay healthy. You got to be playing well when it rolls around, and it's going to make for a really interesting Big Ten race and a really interesting NCAA tournament.
Oh yeah, you're right. I mean, just to speak to that, the number one team in the country is not even a Power 5 team.
Well,
right.
The number one team in the country should not be. Houston should not be number one. That's the problem with how we rank teams. You know, they beat Kent State at home by 5, beat St. Mary's at home by 5.
St. Mary's is good.
Well
coached
about that, Gary?
Yeah, they're well coached.
Let's see. St. Mary's is 6-3 with losses to Washington, to New Mexico, and Houston. Yeah, that's a good program. I'm not
they're
doubting.
probably all on the road or a neutral site. He's a good coach. They're always battling Gonzaga. They finish second to Gonzaga every year, pretty much. Not a bad team. Not a bad team.
My guess is that when it all plays out, Houston is not a Final Four team.
Houston has been to the Elite Eight and the Final Four the last 2 years.
I know. I watched them against Kent State at home, and they looked bad. They put up 49 against Kent State, against the Golden Flashes, Gary.
Well, everybody has bad. They won.
You're right. They did find a way to win.
Who do you want to be number one?
It's a crapshoot. It's a crapshoot. I was going to say probably Texas before.
Where is crapshoot? Is that in Tennessee? Is that in Alabama?
I would have probably said Texas before Tuesday, Gary.
Texas.
See,
then what happened to Texas?
Well, they lost. They lost neutral court, but that's a good Illinois. Obviously, a really good Illinois team.
Maybe Purdue.
Yeah, I think the big thing with voters, and Durrell MVP, you know this because you follow Mark Rogers' content, is I don't vote on the not part of the committee that votes, but the voters vote primarily based off record. And, just because a team's undefeated and because they were ranked higher than a team, just because a team is undefeated now and they happen to be in the preseason rankings ahead of a team that now has one loss, does not mean that you can't flip the one-loss team over the zero-loss team.
Well, I think they're up there because of what they've done the last 2 years.
Well, but that shouldn't be how we vote either. Based on what they're like.
They've proven that they're a real good team and they're undefeated.
Okay. Are we talking about last year? Or are we talking about this year?
I'm talking about that. This is a lot of teams get ranked higher than maybe they should be based on what they've done in the past. And that includes Big Ten teams. That includes North Carolina. North Carolina is ranked number one. I can almost guarantee it by their performance last year and what they got coming back. And now they're not even in the poll. Houston goes to the Final Four in the Elite Eight the last 2 years. So they're initially higher up the poll to begin with. So they don't have as far to go to get the one. And they have lost. So they've just as everybody's lost, they've just kind of whittled their way all the way up to the top spot. And until they get beat, that's where they're going to be.
I'll tell you who should be number one. And it's Virginia, because I'm forgetting about what they've done. All right.
Well, they just had a close game the other night at home won by 5.
Okay. But they've got wins over Michigan on the road.
Yeah, Michigan, the jury's out on Michigan.
They've got a win over Illinois on the road.
Was that on the road? Was that at Illinois?
I believe
it was a neutral site game in a tournament.
Corey doesn't know. Yeah. That's a neutral site. That's a good win. That's a very good win.
Win against Baylor.
That's a good win.
So, and yes, they beat Florida State by 5, but we're comparing a win against a Power 5 team. We don't need to make jokes about.
You could make a case for Virginia. I agree.
They received 3 first place votes. We can get off this subject, but the top 25 polls last year, Gary, for the last 2 months of the season, Durrell VP knows this. I did a top 25 myself. I just released it on the channel, top 25 that actually makes sense. And by the time I was done with the season, and it didn't generate a ton of traction, so I just thought, not going to do it this year. It takes a lot of work trying to follow all these. That these AP voters and even the coaches that are voting, they're not following all these games.
No.
So, that's why I don't really care too much about rankings anyways. It's just so hard to come up with rankings when teams are playing 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah. And who they're playing and where they're playing them. Yep.
Anything else?
Especially this year with the parity. I mean, you'll have a team that it feels like every night there's a massive upset. So I kind of go with in basketball more of the record argument than in football, just because of the amount of upsets. But there's a lot of great teams out there. Iowa seems like to be one of them, and good luck to Iowa going forward to you guys. I mean, you got a big test Sunday against Wisconsin. You go 2-1 this week. I think most people would take that.
And I'll just say this, drill MVP. I looked at this the other day. CJ Frederick's struggling at Kentucky right now.
Yes, he is. I can't sugarcoat it any other way. He's not hitting his threes like he should. And it's really costing Kentucky. And I think teams are starting to shrink the floor and making it harder for Oscar Tshiebwe to do what he does, which is just dominate the rebounding game.
And I believe he's been ripped from the starting lineup, correct? He's now a bench guy.
I believe so. I didn't see the beginning of the Michigan game, but Kentucky did beat Michigan, which is good, but he's underperformed. I was hoping he would be like, Kentucky had a 3-point sharpshooter last year, and I was hoping he would just plug in and fill that role, because when you got a sharpshooter from 3 that's on fire, you know how it is. It just opens up so much on the inside, especially when you've got a big guy that's as dominant as Oscar Tshiebwe. He's like a Coffee Colburn for Illinois, for the Big Ten people out there, just grabs every rebound and dunks it. And the ball, he finds the ball more than the ball finds him, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, Darrell will be anxious to talk to you more about Iowa, Kentucky football here coming up soon.
Yeah, and Corey, if you do a top 25 list, please respect the Murray State Racers, unlike last year. I mean, poor Corey they had 2 losses all season, and Corey just absolutely refused to rank them.
They didn't play anybody. They don't play anybody.
They had 2 losses, and they were like 30-2.
They don't listen. Gary had 0 losses last year. Darrell MVP. You don't see me ranking Gary.
No, I'm not happy about it.
So, anyways, Darrell MVP. I appreciate you as always, sir.
Yeah, shout out to St. Peter's, by the way, Corey. Shout out to them.
The Peacocks.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Never
man.
forget.
Appreciate you, sir.
We may have a few of those this year, too. It's going to be wide open.
It's fun. It's great, right? I mean, what's weird about it is last year we kind of said that, and then you had 4 blue bloods at the end. Brian says, was Riley on the bench dressed? Apparently he'd been sick. Yeah, he was in warmups. I saw a picture of him in warmups. But again, development-wise, he's not going to be, even with Chris out, he's just not going to be playing right now. He's got a lot of work to do. Adam, appreciate this from Adam here, and a compliment for, I guess, you and me both, Gary. So I appreciate Adam and his good words. Eric says, what's up with Ogundele? Is he really that out of shape? He can only play 3-minute stints. Seems to play well when he's in there. He plays okay when he's in there. I don't know that he's just, there's a drop off between him and Phillip. I think that's clear. Is that the easiest way to put it, Gary?
Yep. That's a work in progress.
And Big Bolivar, I don't know that I ever said Iowa was going to get smoked. What I said last night was I don't have a good feel. I think what I said is the line was 4. See, here I'm going to backpedal, Gary. The line was 4. All right. And I said, I've never bet against the game, but I'd certainly take Iowa against that number. If we were just talking predictions, and they proved me wrong, but that's why there's other people out there smarter than I am as it relates to predicting these things.
Not many, but there are a few.
One of them is on this stream. Backyard GoPro, Chris Murray update. I haven't listened to Fran McCaffrey. We'll do that probably. I'm done here, but again, it sounds like he's going to be out for a while. I would guess we won't see him for Wisconsin, which is unfortunate. But again, you get a pretty. Let me just real quickly. I know we've hit our hour here, but I want to real quickly bring up the Iowa basketball schedule just to kind of put this into picture for everybody. So they play Wisconsin today. Now, keep in mind, if he injured this on Tuesday, assuming it takes a couple weeks, I know those, feet can be kind of weird, right, Gary?
No doubt, and they got to be right. You can't play with bad feet.
So then you get 5 days off. Then you get Southeast Missouri. Then you get 3 more days off. You get Eastern Illinois. They don't play Nebraska until the 29th.
I will bet. My guess is that they'll try to get him a little time before the game before Nebraska, and that's.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll see him before that.
He may not play. I mean, if he's not 100%.
No, he may not.
There's worse teams in the Big Ten to kind of be rusty against than Nebraska, right? I mean, Nebraska's dangerous, but you'd rather be playing.
They said last night on the Nebraska game they were going for their 4th straight win over a ranked team, which was the first time in the history of the school. And I stopped and said, that's got to be a mistake. But no, it was true. They didn't get it, but.
And if Iowa wins on Sunday, they'll probably be ranked by the time Nebraska rolls around.
Yep. They will probably be ranked if they win on Sunday. I think Wisconsin will be ranked if they win on Sunday.
Do we dare go to the phones for the last call tonight, Gary?
Go for it.
Thank you for calling Iowa Postgame with Coach Gary Close. Who's on the line?
Zach, how's it going, Corey?
All right, Zach, we're safe. How you doing, sir?
Yes, I'm not one of those. Yeah, you know me. I'm not one of those yahoos.
Well, we have one or two every show.
Yeah, I know earlier, Coach Close, you guys were trying to think of someone comp to Philip or Bracha. I think I had commented about a month ago, kind of maybe a Russ Millard, or maybe even Alvarez, both guys from my hometown of Cedar Rapids.
Would be good. Yeah, for sure.
Yes, he says Basabi. Nelson Basabi. There's some similarities there. You went up against him coaching at Wisconsin, Gary, right?
Yeah, we did. He was more athletic. I mean, he kind of a little more raw and a little more athletic. Same thing with Russ. Russ was that's a pretty good analogy, actually. Russ was a terrific athlete. But yeah, I think that's a good one.
And I'd say last year, and he's improved. Tony's improved leaps and bounds over last year. Last year, Tony reminded me of a little bit of a guy in the mid '90s who was a walk-on, Daryl Moore, one of those guys who just worked hard and just did all the dirty work.
Yep.
But congrats to Fran, 500 victory tonight.
Yeah, that's great.
Philip had an amazing game. Who knew he could shoot the three real well? It seemed like whenever the team needed to calm down, Connor was running the show, which is nice, 0 turnovers. The only question I would have is there something that Fran can do to get Peyton, kind of get the yips out of him? Because it looks like he's just, I don't want to say he looks lost on the court, but it looks like his shooting's kind of getting in his head a little bit.
Yeah, he did the same thing today at the first shot of the day for him. He just turn around and shoot. His release is so quick. It's almost like not squaring up to the basket. Am I wrong in that?
Yeah, he's got a quick release, which is not all bad, but a quick release when somebody's in your face is not a good decision. No. He showed signs. He knocked at least one, maybe two down. So that's going in the right direction. They need him bad. They're going to need him bad Sunday, because if they don't make threes, they're just going to pack it in, and it's going to get more and more clogged. So he's got to step up Sunday.
And Gary, I'm convinced, and you may say I'm wrong on this, I'm convinced that you got 2 of 2 out of Aaron Eulis. You got 2 of 2 out of Philip Bracha. Those guys are not going to do that every night. They're just not. They're never going to be.
How many times do you see a team make 10 or 12 one game, the next game they come out and they make 2? So I was hoping they'd save a few for Sunday, because I think they're going to need them.
Well, I'll tell you, if we're going to play Josh Dix 10 minutes, run some plays for him, because that kid can shoot threes, Gary. He might be one of Iowa's better 3-point shooters as a freshman. And I understand he's a freshman, but he's out there. He played over 10 minutes tonight. Especially if they're thin again without Chris on Sunday, I see Josh, he and Peyton, if those guys could make some threes on Sunday, it's going to take some pressure off of Tony and Aaron and Patrick. Because Patrick had been struggling from 3. They
has
during the broadcast.
Yeah, and he was missing them badly, not rimming out. They were missing by quite a bit. So it was good to see him knock a couple down too. Yeah, I think everybody knocked some down, so hopefully that'll carry over till Sunday.
Yep, and like I said, great win. Both comeback win from the women last night. Nice little start to finish win from the Hawks tonight.
Yeah.
Great show, Corey. Love listening to you guys. Seeing Coach Close, I'm 40 years old, so I remember the teams of the 86, the 87 years.
There you go.
To where, with Sir Jam a lot and all that. So, yep, have a great night, and go Hawks.
All right, thanks for the call.
All right. Well, that hour flew by, Gary.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Absolutely. There's no there's no better feeling than getting this. Like, this game is always, at football or basketball, regardless of how good Iowa State is, it's just a game you hate to lose. You feel that? Did you feel that as a coach as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. This was a big game. There's no doubt about it. You want to win the in-state games, whatever state you're in. I mean, Marquette wants to beat Wisconsin, and you go right on down the horn. And when and these are two good programs, so yeah, you want bragging rights, no doubt.
What was your biggest positive takeaway from tonight, collectively? Something maybe that you learned tonight?
I just think the way they responded to a tough loss, you lose your best player. Hey, we're going to find a way. We're going to find a way to get this done. You whipped a good team easily. So a real good response to a tough loss.
Circle Herc. This in-depth analysis is great, but it's time you two start answering the tough questions. Isn't it true Dr. Tom Davis once got a slinky to go up a set of stairs? Circle Herc
know that.
jokes. I appreciate that about Dr. Tom.
If anybody could, it'd have been him.
Absolutely. And then appreciate this from Eric. Thank you for being here, Eric and Ari Gold and Chad and everybody. Appreciate everybody being here. And as I said before, want to thank, let me make sure I get the right graphic up here. I want to thank Brad Van Meter and his team down at State Farm in Des Moines. Again, whether you're talking about renter's insurance, auto insurance, whatever the case may be, him and his small team down in Des Moines will take care of your needs regardless of where you live. Across the state of Iowa, they're taking care of folks in the area of insurance. Give his team a call, 515-256-6480. And again, when you support Brad Van Meter and you allow them to get you even just a quote, see if they can get you a deal on select insurance, you're supporting the work being done here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. So again, appreciate Brad Van Meter and his team. And Gary, on Sunday, we've got obviously the big game, Iowa-Wisconsin, 5:30 p.m. Central Time. We're going to have to figure out post-game coverage because you and I will both be at the game. And I doubt that Matt Weitzel and Steve Rowe and the sports information guys are going to let us do a show from the logo. So
probably not.
we'll figure it out. You and I will chat, but we'll do something. We'll figure out a way to get some coverage in for folks.
Yeah.
But big game. I mean, you go 2-1 this week. You mentioned that going into sort of a break for finals, you get a couple more primers. Where you're going to be.
It's a Big Ten game. It's a Big Ten home game. It's a big one.
Big Ten Open.
It's going to take a great performance to beat them. They're going to have they've had a great week. They beat Marquette, which is like beating Iowa State, and so they can get this one. It'll be a good week for them.
So as a final recap, folks, for this evening, the Hawkeyes defeating the Cyclones 75-56 in a rout inside Carver Hawkeye Arena. Chris Murray not playing due to a lower body injury. The word on the street is that it's a plantar fascia issue with his foot. So we'll see how the recovery process for Chris. Certainly don't want to re-aggravate that because you just never know with feet. Philip Abracha, though, stepping up in a big way. 22 points, 11 boards, 4 assists. Tony Perkins, tons of energy on the defensive end. He also added in 10 points, 6 boards, 3 assists. He's got those long arms, got the ability to jump in passing lanes, and just active on the defensive end. Everybody was tonight. Patrick McCaffrey, 5 of 8 from the field with 13 points. And the Hawks, 12 made threes this evening. You hope you didn't waste them all, Gary, because they got a really good defensive team coming in on Sunday.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to get quite as many open looks as they got tonight, but that's okay. That's got to give them some confidence because they needed it after how they shot in New York.
Absolutely. Reminder, everybody, shop Amazon with From the Hawkeye of the Storm. Link in the description below. It's a way you can support the channel. You can also become a premium subscriber. Click the join button next to the channel name. If you're on an iPhone or iPad, you may have to sign in on a desktop to do that. You can follow me on Twitter. I'll try to behave at From the Hawkeye or From the Hawkeye of the Storm on Facebook. Of course, I try to post updates on the transfer portal, and of course, right here on YouTube, updates for Iowa as it relates to the portal. We've got news coming, more news coming, I think, in the coming days. Please hit the like button on your way out. Please subscribe as well. If you're interested in sponsoring any of the content here, you can reach out to me from the Eye of the Storm at Outlook.com. I had a couple people reach out to me about being a moderator. If you reached out to me about that subject, I've just been busy. I've not gotten back to you. I will respond to your emails. So appreciate everybody wanting to help the show, and we could use some moderators here. So we'll try to get that going.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, folks. Iowa, Wisconsin, Sunday, 5:30 p.m. Central Time, BTN, and we'll have post-game coverage in the evening. Coach Close, appreciate you taking the time as always, sir, and we look forward
Good
to
one for the Hawks.
Yeah, absolutely. We look forward to seeing you on Sunday.
You bet.